Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm doing PreSonus Studio One version 5.2 as a Cubase user of Cubase version 11 in whichever maintenance update they have going on. So yeah, this should be fun. This has kind of been long overdue in a way, but at the same time, this is perfect time for this. So a lot of people requested that they wanted a new video about the newer versions of both softwares, and so I'm just going to go over some of the nuances, some of the features, at least in my workflow, that might be worth mentioning. I'm sure I'll miss a few, so forgive me on that, but without further ado, let's just get into it. So right out of the gate, we're going to hop into Studio One. I'm going to show you something that Cubase just outright, Steinberg, we've requested for years. It's multi-track editing, so you can warp, cut, quantize, detect, whatever, all on a single screen without having a bunch of windows pop up. And I'm not going to say it's bad in Cubase, but it's nothing like this. This is great. Okay, so we just go in, turn on bend mode, view the tracks, and we can go in, take our bend tool, and just with the snap on or off here, I got turned off. There we go. And you just go into every hit, and if you group the channel, or all the channels, these are drums here, boom, you can move them all, and they're going to be responsive, just like you'd expect. It's pretty great. Other DAWs do this. Studio One accomplishes this very well, and I got to give them hats off onto it because it works great, and thus far I haven't encountered any bugs with it, so that's really cool. But okay, so say we wanted to detect transients. Okay, so we're going to analyze everything, and you can see, boom, it automatically analyzes whichever channels are selected. You can do them one at a time. I find that it helps with performance. Analyzing, you can do multiples, but whatever. Okay, great. You go through, adjust the threshold, really fine-tune how many hit points, if you're a Steinberg Cubase user, is what we call these in Cubase land, but they're called audio bend markers in Studio One, and you could immediately detect these very efficiently, much quicker than using Cubase's hit point detection system, which is awesome. But okay, great, we want to slice this, we're just going to go up there, hit slice, and it creates our slices like you see here. But in this option, I have it on merge, so it merged it into an audio file. But if we double click that, it opens up the lower window, and you can see that all of our edits have taken place. Everything was sliced. We can just dissolve it or unmerge the track if we prefer to see that, but you get the gist. And you can go through all your audio tracks without opening up multiple different screens, going in one by one. It's just so much easier to see, easier to work with. So the workflow for Studio One, I think this is one of the areas where maybe if you're used to it, it just takes some time getting used to. It's great. You can see I can still resize the tracks. One thing I do like is you can see waveforms in the folder tracks, so you can see exactly kind of visually what's going on in each folder track. So I think that's a pro. But you can see here, if I press Z, it does a similar thing with Cubase, like Cubase. It opens up the channels to its previously saved state, and that's the way Studio One works, is you have to save zoom states. Shift Z, if I know correctly, saves that as a zoom state, and then if just engaging the hotkey Z, it'll open that back up. Now, while that's useful on its own, it's not quite as nice as the way Cubase handles things. It just feels a little bit more clunky. If I go to resize channels or move quickly throughout the project, it's just not quite as zippy and refined like Cubase is in that department. So Cubase here has a few different ways to move around the project. It's pretty self-explanatory. Zoom in, zoom out, up, down, track height, to me, is really important in being able to adjust those. You can obviously do that like this, pull them down, and everything's good to go. But where Cubase takes the cake, and it makes it far superior over Studio One in this regard, is boom, I can press Z and it'll collapse each track. If I press it again, it'll open it up. It's way more snappy and accessible for larger projects. For me, Studio One, it's getting close, but it's not quite there in project maneuverability. So in Cubase, I have the mixer up here. If I open this up better so you can see it, you can see there's the mixer history. So this is really cool. If we make any change in Cubase's mixer or to an insert plugin or whatever have you, here I'll sweep the EQ like that. You can see it's making this change, and it's all laid out chronologically by time, by name, in a linear format that's non-destructive. So moving on into Studio One here, you can see we have our listen bus enabled, and we have SonarWorks on it. It functions very similar to Cubase's control room, and that's great, but it is a little bit more streamlined, for better or for worse. It doesn't have the same routing capabilities and features as control room does. Covering Cubase's control room, this is pretty nice. We're just going to go up right to the right hand corner here, click control room. You could also do it through the mixer, and you can see here you have the mix and cue controls here. You can go into the inserts, have things like SonarWorks or other plugins, whatever you want to reference in your monitoring chain. You can do that all here in control room, and it's super nice, and it's definitely in my opinion, a big advantage over Studio One's listen bus. Cubase here, if we go through on the mixing inserts, it operates very similar to Studio One. I can click and drag these on over like this, and you can see that is also affected in the mixer history as well. But I do need a key modifier, the Alt key, to be able to drag and drop these over at will. So it's a small thing, but I gotta cover it. Track colorization. Both DAWs do this, but Studio One wins hands down in this area because you get more color selection and you get a visual representation, and it's not buggy. Look how easy it is. Boom, select whatever color you want, highlight the tracks, then select your color, and move on. You're good to go. Cubase is riddled with bugs in that area. Now, going on to the bottom half of the mixer here. Cubase has that as well, but I don't like using it. It's very difficult, and it has tabs for, you know, the volumes and then the inserts. It's weird, and sends. It works, but it's weird. Moving the inserts around, although, is about equal in both DAWs. Both are snappy. One area where Cubase loses is Studio One has the splitter, so Studio One wins here. They also have macro control, so you can actually, you know, assign different parameters to different things. You can do in the splitter, you can do multi-band processing, you can do even more chains if you want. It's really cool. So one thing I don't like in Studio One is how they handle instrument tracks, both adding and taking them away and deleting them. See, I have Mojito here, and I have this track. Okay, cool. If I want to take that, remove the track, it takes away the track, but not the instrument. You have to select a completely different option if you want to delete the track and the instrument. So it's cool, it's simple, but it's just kind of cluttered and a little, you know, chaotic when you're working fast. In Cubase, you delete the track, it's gone. So one feature I love about Studio One is this loop to selected events, and it's on by default. You can turn it off up here on the toolbar or on the timeline toolbar. If you right click, we can adjust that and make it enable it or disable it if we'd like. I love it. I know other DAWs do that, but really cool feature. Cubase does something similar, but you have to have a hotkey for it. I'll show that here in a bit. So on Cubase's end here, you can see it has a lot of the same features and availabilities for the loop selector, but there's no option to actually have the loop selected events like in Studio One, unfortunately. Doesn't matter what you click, there's just nothing really that just automatically does it. There is, however, a default. You hit P on the keyboard, it will loop to the selected event, just like that. And you know, you can see here, press P again, loops to the selected event. Very handy, you know, works the same way, but you do need that hotkey in order for that to work. Another really cool thing is if I go into one of these clips, and I love this about Studio One, is we have a speed. We could slow down or speed up individual media clips or audio clips here. So, you know, I just made this a little smaller there, and you can make it larger or whatever have you. But man, I really just love that feature. It makes it super handy to record. You know, if maybe you're not a super fast player, you could still play to a click. It'll still be in time if you just double it or half it or whatever. But you can slow down the parts, speed them up like that, and or anywhere in between. Very cool. Very cool feature. Cubase, you can't do that with Cubase. I'm sorry. You can time stretch a clip, but it's not this precise. Another thing I wanted to cover really quick was Studio One's Midi Inserts, or they call them note effects, but it's essentially in Cubase's terms, in Steinberg terms, it's Midi inserts, and these are really cool. They're really cool in Cubase. They were really kind of a big thing many moons ago, and they're still a very useful tool. But basically, we could use a note effect and put them on a channel like a MIDI or an instrument track like this, and it will cause like arpeggiations, chords, repetitions, stuff like that. So I have a synth here, add a note effect or a MIDI insert here. Okay, so we just drew one single solid line, but you hear that this is causing it to repeat. It's just a cool, very creative way to get more interesting things going in your MIDI patterns, and it can be very creative and inspiring to work with, especially Studio One plugins like Repeater and their MIDI insert effects or note effects. Honestly, they are much better than Cubase's, in my opinion, not just in looks, but also in functionality and how they operate. So this is really cool. Let's go with like an arpeggiator. I mean, you see exactly where you can go with this kind of stuff. Very cool. Honestly, way better laid out than Cubase. Cubase still offers these, but it's just not as fun to work with them, if I'm going to be completely honest. So back in Cubase, we have the ability to import samples and audio files, just like in Studio One, obviously, right? But you can see this is stereo file. We have this going, and say I want to split it to two mono files, or if it was a mono file that just got rendered off as a stereo file. We come up here, convert files, boom, convert it multi-channel to mono, there you go. Two mono individual channels, very quick, very convenient, super powerful tool. I use this almost in every mix because sometimes you'll get audio files that are stereo. On the opposite end, you can then take that, if you wanted, say, two mono tracks stereo, boom, there you go. And you're good to go. Really love that feature. In Studio One, in order to convert files like that, it's a couple additional clicks, a little bit more dragging, but not bad. So if I import this stereo sample here we go. We got the stereo sample going on. We want to convert this to, say, two channels. You can do this opposite if you wanted to. Just reverse the steps. I open up the track. You see those little dots I just clicked? Boom, stereo, mono. There you go. We want mono. Okay, cool. We're going to take that, make sure that mono is enabled, put this back in our browser. It's going to create an additional copy. And then we're going to take this copy and re-import it back in to Studio One. Just drag it right on in here. And you can see, boom, there you have it, mono. Pretty simple, just a little different than Cubase. And you can look down at the bottom here and it'll verify what file type it is for you as well. All right, comping in Cubase. Let's get into it. So I have a track here. And actually, before we get too far in, we actually have track versions just like in Studio One. You can see I can add, I can replace, I can take a new one, I can take all that out. Track versions, I use them all the time. They're lovely. But into the comping, you can see I have these different layers here. Now, if I open this channel and I hit the comp button here, it'll show me all the layers, or in Studio One, they're called layer takes. You can see now I have to go up to the toolbar and grab my scissors tool and my comp tool in order to cut and splice things. This works really well, but it is a little cumbersome on Cubase's behalf. It's logical, so I can't really criticize it too much, but you know, it works. It works and it works well. I like it, but it's, after using Studio One especially, a little bit more cumbersome. So, and there's our take here. Comping in Studio One here, you'll see it's a little bit more modernized. It's essentially the same, which is good. We have track takes just like in Cubase. You can see here we can add, we can, you know, take them away, we duplicate them, whatever we need. Really awesome. If we click right here, you can see all the different takes that we have in this particular recording here for this demo. And you can see I'm just using the one selector tool. I don't have to go up to the toolbar, select one to two different tools. It's just immediately selects, using the selection tool, whatever comp I want to use. But you can see here now, say this is our comp, we can just leave it like that. We could bounce it to a new audio file like that if we didn't like that, and we could still access the different individual layers, which I thought was very neat in Studio One, kind of intuitive even. Go figure. But if we go back, another thing we do is we can merge this audio part. If we go into event and then merge part, this will merge it together like it's one single audio file, but you can see the different parts of our comp. So it's a little cleaner, but also a little bit more non-destructive. So let's talk pitch correction software really quick. Cubase comes with Very Audio, and it's amazing. However, you'll notice that the keys here are inverted. It's not a bug. They did it on purpose. I hate it, but, you know, work through it, whatever. But it's cool. You know, you can, you know, adjust standard pitch, you can cut things, get really fine and very detailed into the edits. Works great. You can adjust timing like that. You can adjust volume. You can adjust the pitch curve, which is very, very handy for fine tuning the vocal. If somebody just, oh, hey, you need at the end of it, just go up or down a little bit, you know, whatever. It's great. Obviously, you could also do format shifting here too. So it's really, really powerful and something you'd end up paying a good couple $100 more for in Melodyne, because you don't get that until you get up into the higher echelons of Melodyne. Of course, in Melodyne, you know, being kind of one of the OGs there, you also get monophonic and polyphonic in Melodyne, and in Very Audio, unfortunately, at the moment, we only have monophonic. But, you know, before we get too into it, I have to say the R2 integration between both DAWs and most DAWs these days is just phenomenal. Amazing work to the people who have worked on that. Man, that is, it's like black magic. It's so good that it almost feels like you're cheating. So great work on there. It also goes to show you in context of Studio One, you don't need a built-in you know, proprietary pitch correction or anything like that in order to make things work. So you can share the love with other companies, you know, and I think that's cool. But coming in here to Melodyne, you can see this is just Melodyne Essential. Works great. I can adjust individual notes. I have a timing macro. If I come up here to the top, timing macro, it's cool, quantizes the time, but you're limited. You can't do it by hand or anything like that. Same thing with pitch. You can do pitch by hand, but you can't. You also have this macro here, but you can't do any pitch curve adjustment in Essential. You can't do any format adjusting in Essential. Or volume adjustment in Essential. No, you know, sibilant detection. It's really state-of-the-art stuff, really great. But you don't really have access to that kind of fine-tuning here. But you can split things. You can adjust pitch. You can do all your basic stuff, which is really more than enough if you're, you know, a decent enough vocalist, or, you know, just doing some minor pitch adjustments here and there. Well, guys, there you have it. Studio One in Cubase version 11. Again, this was Studio One version 5.2 and Cubase version 11. So I get a lot of questions, and it's a fair question, especially people who are looking, maybe they're seasoned, they're looking to make the switch, but they don't have time to test out the software. I get it, you know. I'm both a fan of Studio One and Cubase. I think they're both great. They're uniquely powerful in their own slight different ways. I'm still primarily a Cubase user, but for those of you who are wanting to know, like, oh, I'm seasoned, I want to make a switch, or oh, hey, I'm new to this, what do I start with? Literally any of them. They're both fantastic. You can't go wrong with either of them. That being said, I think Studio One is a little bit more accessibly priced for the money and has great features. Obviously, there's things like the dongle situation. Studio One doesn't have that, which is great. Cubase, it's not a big issue if you're a studio user like I am. But if you ever want to load it up on a laptop, it becomes a little bit more of a hassle, to say the least. However, it should be noted that Steinberg is working on a dongle-free licensing system, so heck yeah, that's cool. Otherwise, I personally feel I'm just mostly comfortable with Cubase myself, so I'll probably continue using Cubase primarily, but I'm finding myself outsourcing a little bit more work to Studio One just because I like the workflow. It's very similar to Cubase in most ways. The maneuvering, as you saw, gets a little bit different and difficult, in my opinion, with Studio One in larger projects. Cubase handles larger projects still better. However, PreSonus is making good strides into improving in that area, and they've improved it a lot since version 4.5, I think, was the last version in the last video. Again, if you haven't checked out that last video, go check it out. There's some cool information in there, and you can kind of get a compare and contrast going for you. But otherwise, yeah, that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. Let me know if you have any questions and what more content you'd like to see. Let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you. You guys have a great day, evening, whichever. Thanks for watching.